Today's talk is going to be about your thyroid that might not be normal. You're just being under tested. So, if you've ever been told your thyroid labs are normal, but you still feel exhausted, foggy, cold, or just stuck in a body that won't respond, this episode is for you because the issue is often not that nothing is wrong, it's that we're not measuring the right things. And this is where people stay stuck. So, why thyroid dysfunction gets missed is the key here. Modern medicine is very good at detecting disease, but it is not really designed to detect dysfunction. There's a huge difference between a thyroid that is completely failed and a thyroid that is just not really functioning very well. Most conventional screening is built to catch severe hypothyroidism, and that's the kind that shows up clearly, black and white. But many women live in the gray zone. And in fact, this is the zone that I lived in for 20 plus years before I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I skipped over hypothyroidism and just got diagnosed with cancer of the thyroid that had metastasized to the lymph nodes. That started a whole process and is actually why I'm here today talking to you about this. I come at it from a point of nutrition, functional medical nutrition, so that people can help their bodies feel and function so much better, even if they're on thyroid meds, because that is what I had to do to feel like a normal human being again. This gray zone, going back to that, makes us stuck for years usually. And it's because we're not sick enough to diagnose based on conventional testing, but we're not well enough to actually function either. So we struggle, and it's just kind of spirals into so many other things that I now help so many women with that are really struggling to function. So let's look at what these tests are. And the most common test for thyroid and thyroid hormone levels is your TSH test, right? Let's talk about what this actually is, though. TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone, but here's the key. It's not actually a thyroid hormone. It's just the detection of how well the thyroid and the pituitary in your brain are communicating. It's just a message from your brain to say, hey, thyroid, make some more hormone. Or, hey, thyroid, dial it down a little bit. We don't need so much right now. That's all it tells us. It does not tell us really important things like whether the hormone is active, whether your cells can use this thyroid hormone, or whether conversion is even happening. That is a huge, huge factor. It also doesn't tell us whether metabolism is even running. It's like checking whether an email was sent, not whether it was received. Okay, so it's just kind of looking at one end of things. So it also brings to mind we need to have both things working when it comes to our thyroid and thyroid function in the production of the hormone and the activation of that hormone. When you produce thyroid hormone, you mostly produce T4, which is not very active. We produce about 80% of that, or we have, out of all the thyroid hormone we have, about 80% of it is T4, which is inactive. It's more like a storage hormone that needs to be converted, right? Your body converts T4 into T3, which is the active hormone, in order to do all the things that we need to function, I would say, a normal human being, or how we think we should be able to function. That's going to drive metabolism. It's going to support brain function. It's going to help you regulate your body temperature, maintain your hair and your skin. How many people and how many times have you struggled with hair loss or hair thinning, breaking off, things like that? It helps us with producing energy in our cells. And our thyroid health is not just about making a hormone. It doesn't matter if we have all the hormone in the world, but if we can't activate it or convert it and utilize it, it's kind of useless. We need to have both. Then another thing that's very useful to understand is another hormone called reverse T3, another marker. We need to have this in order to understand how well our body is creating that active T3. So think of reverse T3 as a brake pedal. It really puts the brakes on your metabolism. So if you're feeling, if you're on medication, especially, and you're feeling stuck and you're feeling like you can't get into your fat stores, and if you feel like you can't sleep or you can't feel awake no matter how much you sleep, it's very possible that the brakes have been put on and set and locked down because instead of making the active T3 hormone, you're making something called reverse T3. This slows everything down and really puts a brakes on everything that you want to do to feel like you. So we'll talk about this in the next episode about why this happens, but there's a reason why we get stuck in this and we can remedy it as well. Let's talk about some symptoms that don't match your normal labs. Okay. This is why so many people feel hypothyroid even when they told they are not. They experience that fatigue that sleep does nothing for. It does not fix it, no matter how many hours you sleep. You could also have some insomnia, which obviously affects your energy throughout the day. You can struggle with huge brain fog. That can be really debilitating for some people. You may struggle with cold intolerance. Weight loss resistance is huge for people. Hair thinning, very, very common. Low motivation. And these are signs of cellular symptoms. This is not a gland failure. Does not mean that your thyroid gland has just stopped working. These are signs and signals, and we can do something about it. What labs will actually give you the full picture? To understand your full thyroid physiology, you need to look at all of these things. And sometimes it's not so easy to get. If you jump down into the show notes, you can access your own advanced thyroid lab panel and get at least a baseline for figuring out what to do next if you are not feeling your greatest. To understand the thyroid physiology, you need to have the TSH because that's the signal. It tells us is a pituitary talking to the thyroid or what they're saying to each other. Then you need to have the free T4. This is what is produced by the thyroid in the body or based on the medications you might be taking. And then we need to know the free T3, which is often not tested. And that is what is actually activated. This is what's going to give you that bump in metabolism, that bump in energy, motivation, lower brain fog when you have enough of the free T3. Then we have something called the reverse T3, like I mentioned. That will tell us, are you being slowed down? Are the brakes put on? Can we figure out a way to lift the brakes? And again, that's in the next episode. And then the other are two thyroid antibody markers. This tells us, is the immune system involved in our thyroid dysfunction? And if that's the case, we need to come at things in a little different process so that we can help our thyroid do what it's supposed to do if we just get out of its way. Having that understanding of whether or not the immune system is involved is very important. So without that full picture, we're just kind of guessing. And believe me, I work with so many people who have had tests that just guess and either they're being treated or maybe not treated because they're just saying it's really not that big of a deal, and we're not getting to the nitty-gritty of what actually will help people feel better. Okay, so if this sounds like you, and if you've been told everything is normal, you might still feel a lot of the things we just talked about. If you're probably under treated, you're probably under tested. So that is something that can be dealt with. In the next episode, we're going to talk about what the thyroid hormones say when they're not working, even when you're taking actual thyroid medications. And we'll talk about that reverse T3 a little bit more. But most of all, if this resonates with you, I want you to reach out, book a clarity call, and we can help you figure out what your next best steps are so that you can feel like you again, just like you deserve. All right. Have a good day, and we'll be back soon. Bye-bye.